Hi, class, and welcome to Chapter 4. Chapter 4, we're going to get into the ins and out of forming your business, and then what type of business should it be formed under? Sole proprietorship, LLC, corporation? Let's get into that. Welcome to Chapter 4. So what we're going to look at objectively is to compare and contrast, or look at the differences, advantages and different and disadvantages of maybe sole proprietorship, which means you are the sole person who is running the company. Look at the difference between general and limited partnerships. We'll also look at the advantage and disadvantage of corporation, C corp and S corp. Define and give examples of three types of corporation merges or corporate merges, and explain the role of leveraged buyouts and taking a firm private. We will outline the advantages and disadvantages of franchises. I love franchises. One of my students actually owned one of the franchises here in San Diego, which was Pizza Pizza, Little Caesars, and I was very impressed. He was in the Marines, got his funding source from private loans, small business loans, and from his family. And he bought a he said $300,000 franchise into Pizza Pizza or Little Caesars. We're also going to explain the roles of cooperatives. Ollie Webb, founder of Dry Bar. She trained as a hairstylist in one of New York's top salons, launched a mobile blowout business in Los Angeles, then opened her first shop in Brentwood, California. Customers were attracted to the affordable blowouts, which means hair stuff. I wouldn't relate to that, but you blow out your hair apparently. And also, the salon looked like a bar. It was kind of cool to her. She and her partner, should say, raised money and received a large investment from a private equity firm and offered franchising opportunities. So sometimes you have an idea, but if someone's already created it, maybe you jump on their idea and buy into their franchise. Good example was Little Caesars, and my student loved Little Caesars, wanted to, own one and jumped into the franchise. Years later, though, he determined that fast food wasn't really his thing, and he sold it. He made $100,000 off of his initial profit. So we look at the fact that sometimes we have to decide whether or not we're going to get into sole proprietorships, we want to own our own businesses, and how we're going to go about it. Franchise sometimes is great because the name's already established. McDonald's is really big with that. McDonald's years upon years ago basically started out as private ownership and then eventually identified that franchise ship is the way to go. I'd love for you to take a peek at it's called The Founder. Take a peek at The Founder. It's a DVD on the creation of McDonald's, and it will really give you insight in terms of business, how it starts from the inception, and where it happened in the middle, and then where it is now today. Take a peek at McDonald's. Name this company. When two giant media companies merged in 2019, this company became an even greater entertainment colossus. The company is now in a stronger position to compete with Netflix. Netflix is huge now. Netflix had a opportunity to be partnered with Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video thought Netflix was just a splash in the pan. It's just a fad. No one's going to give a crap about it. They're going to say, we don't care about Netflix. Look at where Netflix is now. Where's Blockbuster now? Those are those moments you have to think about a business transaction and what might benefit you. So in addition to introducing a new streaming service, this company now owns 60% of Hulu. I'm a Hulu fan. Can you think of what companies merged? Disney and 21st Century Fox. Wow, something to think about. They were competing giants. And they said, you know what? We could actually corner the market and beat out Netflix possibly and grab onto other companies and become bigger and bigger and bigger. So here's your basic forms of business ownership. The most popular, I won't say the most popular, but the most familiar people really have is the sole proprietorship, which is a business that's owned and usually managed by one person, unless you're married. My wife and I own two international preschools. It's hers now, we're divorced, but when we actually owned it together, we were considered sole proprietorships because we were one unit. When you're married, you're like one entity. Partnership is a legal form of business with two or more owners. It could be your family members, it could be strangers, it could be colleagues. That's a partnership. And then corporation itself is a legal entity with authority to act and have liability separate from its owners. Corporation. This is going to give you a little bit of an idea of the majority of forms of ownership in terms of how people decide forms of business ownership and what they'd like to do. So you've got sole proprietorship is 72%. Okay, most businesses believe going straight with the sole proprietorship. Corporations 20% and partnerships 8%. Why do you think partnerships is so low? Because it's hard to do business with other people when you have to actually reach an agreement on how the product should be, on how much, to pay your employees. It's a lot more involved when you have more negotiation going on. And percentage of total receipts in terms of the amount of money that actually comes in, 81% corporations, which makes sense. You got so many different directions that your corporation can go. Partnership 13%, and sole proprietorship is 6%. That's percentage of total receipts, which is the amount of money that comes through. So all corporations make up to only 20% of the total number of businesses. They earn 80% of the total receipts. Sole proprietorships are the most common form, 72%, but they earn only 6% of the receipts. So what does that really mean? That means you're spending more money on running your business as a sole proprietor. And I know that's a fact because that's what we did. We had the preschools. We put a great deal of our profit back into the company. So we didn't have like 5 or 6 different investors. We had our money from the enrollment, from the tuition that had to actually keep running the actual company. And so that's something, to think about. And now with 2 preschools, it's more profitable, more work, more staff, but we are highly in demand because it's an international preschool. Ethics. Business centers. Cities with the most minority-run firms. San Jose, Riverside, Los Angeles, Miami, San Francisco, San Antonio, Washington, St. Louis, New York, and Atlanta. Ethnic business centers. Cities with the most minority-run firms. That's pretty impressive. Sole proprietorship. Advantages of sole proprietorship. First of all, easy in terms of starting and ending the business. You're the person. You're the one person that says, I think I'm going to shut down. Years ago, the first business I created was called KL's Comedy Hour. And as a comedian, I really loved doing comedy. I was doing comedy up and down the West Coast, East Coast, and so forth. But it got to the point where it was becoming so clicky. Who do you know? Did you know this guy in Los Angeles? You do, then he can get you on stage. And I got tired of that. I said, you know what? Instead of talking about stuff and complaining, I'm going to change it. So I created my own comedy club. Started with 1, ended up with 3. KL's Comedy Hour here in San Diego. So for me, in order to end it, it was a no-brainer. If I wanted to end it, it was my decision. And the nice thing about that is I was in the military at the time, and so my salary balanced out any bills that I had coming in. So any revenue coming in from the comedy clubs was pure profit, and I was able to put it back into the business. Um, Being your own boss, another amazing advantage of being a sole proprietor. Pride of ownership. It has my name on it. I go by KL because that's my stage name. My real name is Kevin Levon Alston, but I had a tag name when I was a comedian, KL. Because years ago, I'd go to the stage and say, hey, coming to the stage is Kevin. The name would be boring and flat. But when they say coming to the stage is KL, the name kind of flows off your tongue. So from that day forward, I was KL and KL's Comedy Hour. You also can leave a legacy. My son is an actor and a comedian as well now, and he really wants to follow my footsteps. What other way to follow in terms of being, a comedian, in terms of having your own business? Retention of company profits, very true. And also, no special taxes. There's no unique taxes. If you're a corporation, there's some different taxes. If you have a LLC, a different taxes. But sole proprietorship, what you earn is what you get taxed upon, not all the other fees that come into play. So starting your own business, the very first thing you can think about is, what is your passion? What do you like and what do you think is going to attract customers? That's what business is all about. Do you have great customer service? Do you have a great product? Or do you have something to teach people? So Evan, better known as Evan Tube HD, started making toy unboxing videos on YouTube when he was a little kid. Now a teenager, he has more than 6 million 6 million subscribers. Evan creates viral content with his whole family while he's just opening up boxes, opening up stuff, being excited. The fun part is showing his passion and his excitement for what's going to be inside that box. People jumped on that. It became a viral sensation. Um, he makes $1 million per year based off of ads and sponsorships. So sometimes you got to think about, maybe you don't have to go out there and recreate the wheel. Maybe you just go show what you like to do. Maybe cooking. Maybe you have a cooking channel. Maybe you're fixing things. Maybe you're showing people what they really need to do in terms of losing weight. Whatever it is that you actually can turn into a business, you should pursue that. So here's an example here. Do you have a passion you'd like to pursue as a business? Me, my passion is public speaking. That's why I created my own comedy clubs. I had my own talk show in Tokyo called Look Look Konnichiwa. And then I loved cooking, so I had my own catering company called KL's Munchies, another KL tag. And since then, I really enjoyed the fact that I could be an entrepreneur. And that's the essence of it, being an entrepreneur. So we have disadvantages and advantages that we spoke of. Here are some of the disadvantages of sole proprietorship. Unlimited liability. What does that mean? Well, in plain language, it means if you do something financially wrong, legally wrong, ethically wrong, you're liable across the board, which means the responsibility of business owners for all debt of the business is on you. Unlimited liability. Everything is on yourself. And that's okay. As long as you manage it well, it's nothing to fear. You have limited financial resources. That's a given. If you are the sole proprietor, you don't have any other people, any other partners that are going to be contributing to your bottom line. Management difficulties. When you are sole proprietorship, you're the manager, you're the owner, you're the chef, you're the cook, whatever your role is, because that's your baby. That's something you actually born into existence. That's going to be, your responsibility. So management difficulties. Overwhelming time commitments. When I had my comedy clubs, I was in the Navy, of course. I was getting up doing my Navy jobs. Then I had to go in the evenings to get the comedy clubs ready. Then I had to make sure I hired everybody. I was the MC every night, and we had 3 clubs running simultaneously. One on Mondays, one on Thursdays, one on Fridays, and so forth. And so I'm going to all these different clubs. But you know what? It was my club. So of course I'm going to be overwhelmed, but I managed it well. Um, Few fringe benefits. I didn't have any benefits because I didn't want to have to spend extra money on just like vacations, parking, anything that came as bonuses or benefits wasn't included in sole proprietorship because that cost more money and I didn't need that. Limited growth. Sometimes you do have limited growth if you don't have the amount of money to grow your company. That's why people do partnerships, and sometimes even the LLC, you'll have an opportunity to get other sources of income. And limited lifespan. That's a real key factor. How far and how long do you think you can go with a particular company you created if your passion runs out, your product runs out, your employees may run out? So in other words, you got to look at the lifespan. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We started the preschool, my ex-wife and I, in 2005. It's now 2025 and it's still up and running. So we have longevity. That's a 20-year preschool, 20 years in running. What was our secret? We had a niche. The secret that we had a niche because we actually taught um, Japanese traditions, customs, the languages, and people really wanted that for their particular children. And we also catered to the Japanese community. So we were teaching hiragana, katakana, remonji, and kanji. And so when the children actually had to go back to Japan because the parents would transition back and forth based on their company commitments, the children were up to speed with their language. That was the niche. Time commitment, we know you're going to be working above and beyond. You're the one actually handing out the flyers. You're the one that's running through the neighborhoods. When I had my comedy clubs, I was rollerblading through the neighborhood, putting flyers on every car. I'm going to the mall, talking to people. I'm doing videos. Back then we do videos. And we put it on, I think we put it on YouTube back then. But the point was, we advertise. So being the sole proprietor of a company, like a flower shop, for example, means making a major time commitment to run the actual ins and out of the company. Any company that you believe in and that you actually have passion for and it's yours, you don't care about the time commitment because you're going to constantly be involved. My ex-wife, she never takes vacation. She still runs the preschool. And there's times that everyone else is on vacation and she's still there prepping for the next semester or the next class. going to seminars. That's a time commitment. But if it's your job, it's your company, that's going to be your passion. Work-life balancing act. This is super important. Work over 60 hours per week. Percent of small business owners. 60 hours per week. We know that. Work over 40 hours per week if you actually want to have a better balance. You have to make time for family. I know I just came from a restaurant today. It's a restaurant in Southeast San Diego. Delicious cuisine. It is Somalian restaurant, and it's family owned. Those people are there from the morning to the evening, the weekends. Every aspect of running that restaurant is on them. And so their time commitment is through the roof. So consider that when you can think about being sole proprietorship. Here's a little test prep for us. Most people who start businesses in the United States are sole proprietorships. True or false? It's true. But what are the advantages and disadvantages of sole proprietorship? We covered some of that. You're going to have long work hours. You're going to have to deal with management issues, which is you're a manager. But the advantage is the fact that you're your own boss. You can hire and fire your own self. Profit sharing doesn't have to happen because it's your profit. So there's other things that actually you would consider as to advantage or disadvantage of sole proprietorship. Why would unlimited liability be considered a major drawback to sole proprietorship? Well, unlimited liability means no matter what happens, you are liable. Okay, LLC means limited liability corporation, meaning your private assets and your business assets over here are separate. So if something happened and your business collapsed, then I can go after your private assets, which is your home, your car, if you have stocks and bonds. So people really start thinking about sole proprietorship might not be what they want to do. Partnerships we're going to get into as well. Partnerships we know are something we really have to think it through. And I want you to look at the rest of these slides because this is a very, very short lecture because I want you guys to get into the ins and outs of the rest of the PowerPoints. Partnerships, you're going to learn about that and you're going to get into beyond the partnerships. And what I want you to do now is wrap it up and let you guys get into the rest of the PowerPoint. As I've said in every single presentation, please now look at the rest of the PowerPoint, look into the textbook, and check out the videos that I have online. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chapter 5 coming up. We just finished Chapter 4.